brothers and sisters. Welcome. Episode 104, Season 4. As we continue to focus on God, we just thank God for his many blessings that he has bestowed upon us.
Yes.
Oh, not worthy. We thank him for a beautiful Saturday. Nice and sunny, a little chilly, but at least it's nice and sunny on today.
Right.
So as we continue to focus on God, we've been on God for the last few Saturdays since we started Black History Month a little earlier, and we started with the King's family, connection with Ebenezer Baptist Church.
Right.
And then last Saturday, as we focus on God, our topic was Lord have mercy, because we talked about Brian Stevenson, who was born the same year he was born, 1959.
It's a good year.
Yes, good year. Yeah, November 14th, and who's an attorney, a social justice activist, law professor at New York University School of Law, and the founder and executive director of EJI, or Equal Justice Initiative.
Yes.
He also wrote the book and was the executive producer of the movie Just Mercy. So as we continue with Black History Month tributes, we're going to move to the other gender, as they say, the better side of us. To the other gender, yes, the better side. And we're going to bring to you this amazing woman today.
Yes.
I'm telling you, my brothers and sisters, we just realized in our research how amazing the connection is with us, and so with our hometown, which is Hickory, North Carolina.
Right.
So, episode 104, season 4, as we focus on God, our topic is the grandmother of the civil rights movement. Our subtopic, African American, educator, civil rights activist by the name of Septima Poinsett Clark, who developed a literacy and citizenship workshop that played an important role in driving in the voting rights and civil rights for African Americans in the civil rights movement. Septima Clark's work was commonly under the appreciation by Southern male activists. She became known as the Queen Mother, or grandmother of the civil rights movement in the United States. Now, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. commonly referred to her as the mother of the movement. So Clark's argument for her position in the civil rights movement was one of that claim: knowledge could empower marginalized groups in ways that a formal legal equality could not.
All right, so you got a little snippet of what this episode entails. But before we go any further, we always want to give a shout out to our fellow podcasters here on BS3 Network. There are a slew of us, if you will, that is bringing content each and every week for your listening and viewing pleasure. So last but certainly not least, we give honor to our son, Ben Sutter III, who is the visionary and the tireless leader of BS3 Network. He brings this very calm, very spirited energy to this network that follows with a spirit of excellence. That's just a level that he operates on. And of course, he's raised that bar to where we have no other choice but to operate on that level. So if you are interested in being coached in this podcasting arena, he offers that services to you. That information is on your screen. Whether or not you want to be with BS3 Network or another organization or affiliate, you're welcome to reach out to him for his coaching services. And again, if you have not downloaded us on Roku TV, please do so. Check us out. A lot of enriching, informative, very encouraging, spiritual, entertaining content for your pleasure. So we encourage you to do that and reach out to us, if you will, at Sudds-R-Us Podcast. Our information is on the screen. We'd love to hear from you. So without further ado, we will go to our station identification so that you can see all of the content that's available for you on BS3 Network.
BS3 Network, changing the way you watch TV.
Welcome back. Look, today we have discovered it's all about the number 4 today. We are in season 4. This is episode 104.
Right.
And this is Saturday, February 4th.
Yes.
Which is, by the way, the mother of the civil rights movement, Mrs. Rosa Louise Macaulay Park.
Yes.
It's her birthday today. So, you know, how appropriate it is to honor both of these giants, these women of the civil rights movement, the mother, Mrs. Rosa Parks, and now we're honoring the grandmother. So we just wanted to acknowledge her birthday on today, February 4th, 1913.
All right. Great. So now, Septima Poinsett Clark, she was born May the 3rd, 1898, and passed away December the 15th, 1987 in Charleston, South Carolina. Actually, where our cousin, Angela Childs Kendrick, is currently residing.
That's right.
But her life in Charleston was greatly affected by the era of Reconstruction, as well as power relations during that time. Because during that time, the African-American community actually outnumbered the white people after the emancipation of slavery. So Charleston was strictly segregated and harshly divided by class. Her father, Peter Poinsett, was enslaved at birth by Joel Poinsett, farm, and also between Waccamaw River and Georgetown. Now, Joel Robert Poinsett was a distinguished U.S. politician of his time and the namesake of the poinsettia plant. Peter was a house servant, we like to say house Negro, to Joel, as the main stake of his particular duties was to take the children to and from school every day. But after slavery, Peter found a job working on a ship in the Charleston harbor. During one of his travels, he went to Haiti, and it was there that Peter met Victoria, which is Septima Clark's mother. The couple got married in Jacksonville, Florida, and then they moved back to Charleston. Her mother, Victorian Warren Anderson Poinsett, was born in Charleston, but she was raised in Haiti by her brother, who took her and her two sisters there in 1864. So this is an example of how African Americans, to escape slavery and racism, relocated to the islands. This happened to be to Haiti. So Victoria Poinsett had never been enslaved and vowed to never be anyone's servant.
Wow.
So she returned to Charleston after the Civil War and worked as a laundrier. She raised her children very strictly, only permitting them to play with other children one day out of the week. Can you believe that?
Wow.
She was also determined to make her daughters into respectable ladies. So she told them never to go out without gloves on their hands, never to yell in public, and never to eat out in the streets, etc. Now, Victoria Warren Anderson, Poinsett, lived in constant struggle of wanting to improve her social class. See, she wanted to live in the middle class society, but on a working class budget.
Wow.
Kind of like us today, living above our means. Y'all know what I mean. So Victoria made it plain to Peter that she would not be accepting anything lower than a social class lifestyle. So in order to provide for her and her family, so Victoria raised her children separately. That's right, with the boys having more of a lenient rules and rights than the girls. So the boys could have friends over and play many days of the week, but the girls had to do chores and lessons every day other than Friday. Septima, she rebelled against her mother's strictness.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Through never becoming the lady she wished her to be. And she married a man that Victoria considered a stranger. You see, Septima remembered only ever to be punished by her father. She didn't want to attend school, so that's when her father punished her. However, her father was not able to write his own name until later years of his life. Wow. Septima Clark's first educational experience was in 1904, at the age of 6 when she started attending Mary Street School. All Clark did at this school was sit on the bench with 100 other students all day learning nothing. Can you believe that? Learning nothing. So Clark's mother, Victoria, she quickly removed her daughter from that school. And an elderly woman across the street from their house was teaching girls. So Septima learned how to read and write there. Now, due to Septima's poor financial status, she watched the woman's children in the morning and in the afternoon in return for her tuition. So at this time, there was no high school or black high school in Charleston. However, in 1914, school opened for blacks in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And then after the 6th grade, she took a test and she went to the 9th grade at Avery Institute. All of the teachers were white women at the time. So in 1914, black teachers were hired and then brought much controversy to the city, which Clark took on later. She took a part in it through the NAACP.
Right.
Which brings me to my first scripture, 2 Timothy 4, 3-5. It says, "For the time will come when people will not put up with sound doctrine, instead to suit their own desires. They will gather around them as great numbers of teachers to say what their itching ears want to hear. They will turn their ears away from the truth and turn aside to myths. But you keep your head in all situations, endure hardship, do the work of an evangelist, discharge all the duties of your ministry." This is why Septima went into teaching, to make sure her students receive the truth. The same sound doctrine needs to be taught today. While teaching at Avery Institute from 1919 to 1920, Septima Poinsett met Neri David Clark. He worked as a warden cook on a submarine in the Navy during World War I. So in the late 1920s, she went to teach at McClellanville until 1922. She and Neri, they wrote letters back and forth and dated for approximately 3 years and got married in 1923.
Look at that long distance relationship way back then.
Way back then. And they got married in McClellanville and then shortly moved to Hickory, North Carolina, which was Neri's hometown. Now, here's the amazing connection, my brothers and sisters, because we're from Hickory, North Carolina.
Grew up.
Yes, and we are friends with her 2 grandsons.
That's right.
Neri the third and Eli Clark. Now, we was especially close to Neri. Well, I was especially close to Eli because we were a little closer in age. Who is deceased now. God rest his soul.
Yes.
But I played basketball with Eli. We hung out together, Coco and Brooks and Alan Mitchell. That was our crew.
Right.
And so Eli was tall. He was like 6'9".
He was.
And he was really good in basketball.
Mm-hmm.
He could have played in the pros if he had stayed committed and made the sacrifice to improve his game.
Mm-hmm.
Then their father remarried after their mother passed when they was young boys, and he remarried Alma Sudds-R-Us, which is our cousin.
Right.
This is the connection now.
Right.
So after that, so we always claim to be kin, you know, even though we're not blood related or blood relatives, which is very common in the southern states, very common, you know, because I had to dress all my father and mother's close friends as auntie and uncle. So we claim to be cousins. Mm-hmm. But Septima Clark's mother was disgraced by her marriage.
Interesting.
You see, Victoria believed that marrying a man outside of South Carolina was like marrying a stranger. Like we use the phrase stranger danger.
Right.
But that was she was considered. If you marry out of the state, you're marrying a stranger. She refused to have her in-laws for dinner or any other occasion at the house. So the marriage of Septima and Neri, it severed the relationship between her mother, Victoria. So while living in Hickory with Neri's family, Septima Clark became aware of many cultures and ideal differences that they had. They grew up in a different world. She married a mountain man. I'm talking about a low country girl, married a mountain man. But in Hickory, she attended the church Neri's family did, which was an African Methodist church. See, she was actually raised up in a United Methodist church in Charleston. So she found that this church, the African Methodist church, is much more of a community style church than her church in Charleston.
Right.
So throughout Clark's religious journey in life, she found there was many ways to serve and worship God, rather than only one way which could be the correct way. Because see, Hickory was a growing, manufacturing, furniture and hosiery town. So you had the people migrate from all over the county to come to Hickory to work, which also brought some interesting characters who loved the nightlife too, if y'all know what I mean.
Yeah.
All of them wasn't going to church. So Septima got homesick.
Right.
She got homesick.
Yeah.
So they moved back to Charleston, where she taught at Promised Land again from 1926 to 1929. Here's another scripture I got. Hebrews 10:24-25. It says, and let us consider one another to provoke unto love and to good works, not forsaking the assembly of ourselves together, as a manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much more as ye shall see the day approaching. So the spiritual experiences is also similar to ours, because I grew up in a United Methodist Church, Hartsville United Methodist Church, and Irene grew up in African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church, which is Clinton AME Zion Church in Hickory, North Carolina.
Right.
There's definitely differences in the way we worship.
Big.
You know, my church was more traditional, hymn singing, having a solemn, mundane service with more of a teaching style of preaching. And we even worshiped with a white United Methodist Church. Interesting enough, it's where I saw EWF, Earth, Wind, and Fire album in their social hall because of their spiritual lyrics. But now on the other hand, Irene's church was more spirit-filled, singing up-tempo gospel songs, hand clapping, dancing, and shouting, having a hooping style preacher. Not quite cogent now, not quite like Church of God in Christ, but a little bit more excitement and more enthusiasm than a United Methodist Church. They also did a lot of outreach in the community. So when we first met, we were singing in the youth choir. We weren't actually dating or anything, but that's when we first met, when I first noticed her singing in the youth choir. That's why I knew she had a beautiful voice way back then. I really enjoyed the AME Zion, African Methodist Episcopal Zion form of worship. So when I preach at home, my home church in Hickory, North Carolina, which is a United Methodist church, my delivery is a little different. It's similar to AME Zion because that's the way I was trained by Dr. Ronald L. Rogers in the AME Zion Church in Oakland, California. So some of my preaching friends, when they see me online, they get surprised. They say, wow, they let you preach like that at United Methodist Church? Well, that's my home church. So I got a little leeway, a little leniency in my church. Because see, I believe in the Psalms 100, 1-5. And it says, make a joyful noise unto the Lord, all ye lands. It says, serve the Lord with gladness. Come before his presence with singing. Know ye that the Lord, he is God. It is he that have made us and not we ourselves, for we are his people and the sheep of his pasture. So we enter into his gates with thanksgiving and into his courts with praise. Be thankful unto him and bless his holy name. For the Lord is good. His mercy is everlasting, and in truth endureth to all generations. You want to say something about worshiping?
Yeah. So my church, Clinton Tabernacle. As a matter of fact, that's where these shirts came from. See, it has CT on the side, Clinton Tabernacle. That's still, we still reference those as our home church. It was a very close-knit church, clusters of families all throughout our church. And anyone, believe me, anyone could correct you and chastise you if they needed to. Verbally and physically. It was not a problem with any of the adults. And so we walked a fine line at Clinton Tabernacle. It was not, we were not running amok up in the church, and so a lot of times, we had to have walking feet in the sanctuary. That was my foundation. And I appreciate that even to this day, to where I think it was an important foundation that was laid, and I have more reverence for the sanctuary than ever before now that it being an adult and that was laid. Now the worship, it wasn't holiness, but it was real, and it was pure, and it was authentic. Where some country women that would do the singing, and I mean they hand clapping, foot stomping. It was just a wonderful church experience for me that I would never forget. And I still recall some of those old songs to this day. We sing hymns, and I got those under my belt. Without a hymn book, I can sing some hymns. So we were similar in that sense. United Methodist, AME Zion, they were big on hymns. We've gotten away from that. But one good thing I remember, my mother is an excellent cook. And so everyone in our neighborhood and from the church would be at our dinner table, including the pastor, on many occasions where we ended up eating the necks and the backs and the little chicken wings. That's why I like just a little piece of meat, because I never got a lot of meat. But, and we lived, interesting enough, as most Black people do, right behind the church. So we didn't have to say, oh, I ain't going today. All they do is look out and say, now, why you didn't come to church today? You can't get away from it. So we did go every Sunday, and it was a joy. It really was. Yeah.
So in Charleston, they had their first child, which passed away. Now, Clark viewed was the death of her baby as a punishment to her because she married a man that wasn't from South Carolina. Her mother was not sympathetic and refused to help her. However, her father was friendlier towards her. To get over her lost baby, she took a job with a white woman for a summer. They stayed in the mountains for the summer, and the woman was helpless, which gave Clark optimism and hope. Septima then moved to Columbia and began teaching in 1929. It was at Columbia where she got much more involved in civil or civic activities. She then settled in Columbia, South Carolina, and in a total, Septima Clark spent a total of 17 years in Columbia. Much of her work there is documented in the University of South Carolina History Department, which under the direction of B.J. Donaldson has conducted extensive research on African-American education with special emphasis on the history of the Booker T. Washington High School. So while in Columbia, Septima Clark completed her foundation upon which her career, reputation, and memory would rest. She became a highly valued faculty member of Booker T. Washington High School. She completed her bachelor's degree at Columbia's Benedict College and she completed her graduate studies at New York's Columbia University and Atlanta's Clark College. The level and quality of the education that Septima Clark received was typically of what was required as administrator of Booker T. Washington High School in Columbia, who recruited highly trained teachers from all over the country. After J. Andrew Simmons left Booker T. Washington High School to take a position in New York in 1945, Septima Clark stayed there for additional 2 years before finally leaving Booker T. Washington High School, an institution she had helped mold, in order to return to her hometown, Charleston, South Carolina, to take care of her ailing mother, Victoria. Even after her mother mistreated her, she still had that family-oriented lifestyle and mentality, so she went back to take care of her ailing mother. During this time, Clark had trouble providing for Neri Jr. So in 1935, she decided to send him back to North Carolina, back to Hickory, to live with his parental grandparents. So Clark's decision to send Neri Jr. to live with his parental grandparents was a common action in this time due to the Great Depression.
Right.
And as a result of financial issues. Septima Poinsett Clark, married to Neri David Clark Sr., resulted in the course of depression after Septima, as well as significant decline in her self-confidence. So our friend, our father's friend, grew up without his mother. But the blessing was, we would never have met her grandsons if she hadn't made that decision. Right. So the other interesting connection, as I turn it over to Irene, the other interesting connection is that my mother grew up in King Street, South Carolina, which is near Columbia, where my cousin, her brother's daughter, and her family lives today. She married a stranger, a mountain man named Benjamin F. Sudds-R-Us from Hickory, North Carolina. My mother didn't conceive me until 8 years after they were married. So I hope that ridiculous legend didn't affect her mentally, my mother mentally, because of that. So the similarities are interesting. But thanks be to God, she did marry that mountain man, my father, or we wouldn't be here today.
That's right.
And our daughter interned at a middle school in a summer program when she was at Spelman College across the street from the University of South Carolina in Columbia. And she stayed in one of their dorms.
Yeah. So to go back to her, devotion to taking care of her mother, that was nobody but God, right. And rightfully so, she honored her mother until her death, but right. I just thought that was interesting. Nobody but God to give her that strength, despite of, how her mother felt and how vocal she was in her decision and all of that. She honored her mother. Right. And I believe Septima, you call her Septima, I call her Septima. Okay. She lived a long time. Okay. And that's a truth. That's another scripture we should have brought up. Honor thy mother and thy father so that your days on the earth will be long. Yes. So, I just wanted to say that. But we have had so many phenomenal Black leaders, not just women and men. And we're not diminishing any of them and their contribution to the civil rights movement. And we're certainly not throwing any shade on Mrs. Rosa Parks. We brought her up earlier in the show. But Mrs. Septima Poinsett Clark, she pioneered this civil rights movement. That's right. And the work that she put forth before, listen now, it was before Mrs. Rosa Parks was even on the scene and made her world-changing refusal to give up her seat on the bus. Right. This was all before that. So Septima, she's a daughter of a slave, and she made her mark on this movement, not in a bus, and not at the lunch counter. All of this was before that, because those were very significant in the movement. But in a classroom. In a classroom. And she is known as the freedom's teacher, community teacher,
right,
queen mother of the civil rights movement.
right.
We're going to reference her today as the grandmother, grandmama. You know, we don't even say mother in the South, we say grandmama. While Mrs. Rosa Parks, like I said, is known as the mother of the civil rights movement, Septima is known as the grandmother and the ultimate of all the civil rights activists, in my opinion.
Wow.
She made impact. She was moving and shaking in the early 1900s. So her work was so fundamental and so essential in the fight for African Americans and their voting rights, especially in the southern state, the most, I don't think it's the most racist, I shouldn't say that, but it's one of the most racist, the state of South Carolina. So if only our people would know, you know, we got to keep encouraging our people. I'm not going to say it's just young people. There's older people, middle-aged people that still don't understand the struggle.
That's right.
And what all, you know, our forefathers had to fight through and to, you know, withstand. You're talking about taking a stand.
That's right. That's right.
They would not, you know, without a question, they would not have a problem exercising their right to vote.
Right.
And then these are the ones, if you ever notice, they're the ones that's complaining about the outcome of all of the elections, but don't cast their vote. So we've got to challenge our people. I'm sorry. We've got to do that. This woman has put in a lot of work, not just her, but like I said, we're not diminishing anyone else. We're just focusing on Septima today. Now, she was the epitome of determination. You know, although she was not able to attend college initially due to financial constraints. Can you imagine being in college in the early 1900s? People didn't have money, but she took, look, she had the brain. She took a state examination at the age of 18 to allow her to teach. Look at that. That's determination. She could have gave up and said, oh, forget it. I can't teach. You know, I don't have the money. I can't go to school. But she bypassed all of that. And as an African American, she was racially discriminated against. She was blocked and barred from teaching in the Charleston, South Carolina Public School District. But you know what? We know where there's a will, there is a way. And so she was able to find a position in a rural school district. Look, whatever it takes, she was willing to go forth and do what she knew she was called to do on Johns Island. And it's the largest of the Sea Islands. We had to do a little research on that too. Got something else on our bucket list. Y'all check out the John, you know, the Sea Islands. It's a lot of them. And little did we know, you might have been to one or two of them yourself. But she taught on the islands from 1916 to 1919 at Promised Land School. I love the name, Promised Land. And then returned to Avery from 1919 to 1920. Look, she didn't let the dust settle up on her feet. She was moving. She was going to get back to Charleston. She was able to return to school part-time. Look, she was not being defeated in Columbia, South Carolina, to complete her BA at Benedict in 1942. And then she received her MA from Hampton. The sister was determined. Look, during this time, she taught children during the day and illiterate adults on her own time at night, because these people didn't have money. It wasn't about money for her. So I tell you, we are a people of creativity. We're innovative, we're trendsetters, and we're trailblazers. You can't mess with no Black folk, I'm telling you now. She, having no access to reading materials, listen to this. She decided she had a Sears catalog. I remember those, you know, and she taught the adults how to read and comprehend. Look, she made it happen. She made it happen. And so you talk about community service. Look, that was so big when our kids were in high school. You got to do community service. You got to give back. Look at that. She's giving back and she's reaching back, helping her people. That's what it was all about in that day. You know, not being selfish, Not being, look, I got mine, you figure it out, go get yours. She was a community leader and a community teacher. So listen to her rate of pay when she taught during the day. $35 per week. At a school that taught 132 students.
Wow.
That's amazing. While her white counterparts that were across the way, they made $85 per week at a school that only had 3 children.
Wow.
What, they probably had 1 child apiece for $85? How unfair. But these experiences with her educational history, as well as her early experience with growing up, in a racist Charleston city and teaching in the slums, that's what prompted her to want to work towards civil rights. And she taught for nearly 40 years. There's a thing of being on the job for 40 years. I'm sorry we didn't do that. That's just too much. But I appreciate her effort and her dedication and her love for what she did for her people. That was her heartstring, educating her people, and she loved it. How the teachers of today, if they could take a page out of her book, because a lot of them don't have their heart in what they're doing. So our children are suffering. So Grandmother Clark, that's what I'm going to call her going forward, y'all. She first heard of the National Advancement or Association for the Advancement of Colored People. I wish they would change that. Colored people. Gosh.
That's the original name.
That is NAACP as we know it as. While she was teaching on Johns Island from 1916 to 1919. There was no NAACP chapter on Johns Island, but a meeting was held with various preachers, and they came and spoke about what the NAACP was trying to do. And so the superintendent was in attendance to collect dues. We got to get the dues now. How we gonna make things happen without the money?
That's right.
And it was then that really touched her heart, and she decided to join the organization.
Wow.
Now, if persistence was a person, it would be Grandmother Clark. In 1919, she returned to Charleston. I told you she was getting back to home to teach 6th grade at Avery Normal Institute, a private academy for Black children in Charleston. Private. Look, Charleston was doing things private. She joined the Charleston branch of the NAACP, and then she began attending meetings regularly under the guidance of Edmund Austin. Now, you got to pause here. I tried to look him up, and there is no history on this man. Isn't that?
That's interesting.
Yeah. Interesting enough. Not throughout all of the internet, there's nothing about this man. He was the president of the local NAACP in Charleston. And Grandmother Clark, she took part in her first political action with the NAACP in Charleston. She was also unstoppable, not just determined and persistent, unstoppable. Despite the orders of her principal, she led her students around the city, going door to door, asking for signatures on a petition to allow Black principals at Avery.
Wow.
She was not playing. She got 10,000 signatures in a day.
Wow.
Baby, they were walking early morning and night, all night. And in 1920, look, was that the next year? In 1920, Black teachers were permitted. See, when we join forces, we are a force to be reckoned with. In 1920, while serving as an educator in Charleston, Grandmother Clark worked with the NAACP to gather petitions allowing, like I said, Blacks to serve as principals in Charleston schools. Now, their signed petitions resulted in the first Black principal in Charleston as well. So, Clark was working tirelessly to teach literacy to Black adults. And her participation in the NAACP was her first statement, as I said, in political action. And 1920 was a blessed year for her because she enjoyed the first of many many legal victories.
Wow.
When Blacks were given the right to become not just principals in the school, but also, she worked with Thurgood Marshall.
Right.
In 1945 as a case that was, about equal pay for, Black teachers.
Right.
That was also led by the NAACP.
Right.
And in the late 40s, it proved to be a difficult time for Grandmother Clark because she stood up for the NAACP's aim of equalization and integration against many other members and activists. So another one of the greatest accomplishments was in 1953. Some time may have passed, but I'm sure she was working tirelessly. Grandmother Clark, she visited Highlander Folk School in Tennessee, which was dedicated to training community organizers and pursuing equality for all.
Wow.
Here we go. Still to this day, trying to pursue equality and justice for everyone. Isn't that in the Pledge of Allegiance? Liberty and justice for all.
Right.
Come on. It's not happening. This is where, though, she developed the citizenship school model, which promoted literacy and political education. I appreciate that. She coupled those two together because we're citizens of the United States. And yes, we deserve to be able to read and write and to educate and to be able to comprehend.
That's it.
And we also need to be educated politically because that's where all of that craziness was happening with these politicians. So Grandmother Clark, she designed educational programs to teach African American community members how to read and write. She was so determined. She thought this was important in order to vote and to gain other rights. So her idea for this citizen education became the cornerstone of the civil rights movement.
That's it.
That's why she is the grandmother before all the others. She worked with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So as I said before, she believed in the power of literacy and nonviolent resistance. Thus, her and Dr. King, boy, they were a pair.
That's it.
And she was interested in the work of the young activists. See, as we are growing older, we still got to remember our younger people. So the citizenship school became a cornerstone for the SCLC. Powerful. The Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And so during this time, voter registration campaign began in the 1960s, which was led by Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And the organization emphasized education along with nonviolent protests as tactics to secure civil rights. So I call her a fire starter too. Because she was not playing. She wasn't playing with just no dull matches, baby. She was starting some stuff. And so she was educating others for the sake of civil rights. Grandmother Clark, look, here she goes. She joined the SCLC. And in 1961, they made her the director of education and teaching. They say this woman is powerful. Look. And nowadays, men have a problem with women being in leadership. Some, I'm not gonna say all, but then they were like, "Come on, she's
not
powerful."
Initially. Now she had a little struggle.
I'm sure she did, but they made her the director. And in 1962, SCLC joined with other organizations to form the Voter Education Project, which trained teachers for citizenship schools and assisted in increasing the voter registration among African Americans. Now we've done a lot. We got, Stacey Abrams. Look, this is the September of this day. She is making things happen and getting these people registered to vote. So I called her a firefighter because she was a spark. And she was fierce. She was spirited and enthusiastic about the movement. I found a few of her quotes, and I got to make these known to you guys. And that validates my thought. There's one that I'm going to share in particular that I have an actual picture of it. But one is that I have been oppressed. And so I am always going to have a vote for the oppressed. the persecuted, the
right.
ill-treated, the downtrodden, abused, and victimized, which is our people, us, you, and me. And so the one that's on the screen says, I just tried to create a little chaos. Chaos is a good thing. God created the world out of it, the whole world out of it, and change is what comes of it. Look at how powerful. Look at how powerful. I love it. And chaos always has this negative connotation. But look, she made it a positive thing. Wow. The greatest evil in our country today is ignorance. Wow, this is her quote.
That's it.
We need to be taught to study rather than to believe.
Wow.
Powerful. And this is the last. No, I have two more. This is another one. It says the air has finally gotten to the place that we can breathe it together.
Wow. That's it.
Wow. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm not trying to be so, pessimistic, but sometimes it's not we're not so able to breathe it together.
Right.
But here's another one. What we are working for is an educational program that has become a resource and rallying point for scores of brave Southerners.
That's it.
Who are leading the fight for justice and better race relations in these crucial days. I'm telling you, this is a powerful woman. Powerful woman. I see someone has commented. Brian D. Williams, thank you for joining in. Good evening. Good evening. And so Grandmother Clark is perhaps the only woman to play a significant role in educating African Americans and for full citizenship rights without gaining significant recognition.
That's right.
And are we surprised?
No,
not at all. Just like I couldn't find the president of the NAACP. Nobody's going to promote that and advertise that.
Right.
But what do? We keep persevering. We keep pushing. We keep moving forward for the betterment of our people. That doesn't change for us.
Right.
Regardless of what they do and what they try to withhold, this governor in Florida trying to keep our history, no matter what, we are definitely going to keep making impact. We're definitely going to keep making progress because as the years go by, and we see it now today, the white race are becoming the minority. And they know that. They're becoming scared. They're becoming combative. And they're actually feeling ousted, and rightfully so. And they're threatened by us. They've always been threatened by us. So, this is nothing new for us. Okay. So we're just going to keep pushing forward.
Keep it on. That's
so in 1979, this is wonderful. President Jimmy Carter awarded Grandmother Clark a Living Legacy Award. And we have a picture of that. Actually, I think it's going to be this one.
Oh, okay.
No, actually, I guess I didn't put it up. But anyway, yeah, he awarded her with an award, the Living Legacy Award, her second autobiography, Ready From Within, Septima Clark and the Civil Rights Movement. That won an American Book Award.
Wow.
So this is the historical marker that we put up. This historical marker is located in, wait for it, Charleston, South Carolina. They finally got with the program. And it reads in part, Septima Poinsett Clark, who Martin Luther King Jr. called the mother of the movement, was a nationally influential civil rights activist.
Yes.
I love it. And then this picture, which we did put up earlier, you see she's in the middle, and there's Rosa Parks. Sorry, I'm not sure who the other lady is on the other side. And this is some of her just historical pictures.
Wow.
Outstanding woman. Yes. Outstanding. Look her up, you guys. But lastly, before we close, there's a very rare film, and it's on YouTube. I love YouTube. Look, you can't go wrong. You can find everything of her telling an interesting story about Rosa Parks to Dr. Grace McFadden at the University of South Carolina in 1979.
Okay.
So we are so elated to be able to bring this history and how it relates to us in such a rich way. And little did we know, we reached out to the grandson, whom we still we're friends with him on Facebook, haven't seen him in years. But unfortunately, he was unable to make it. But what a connection that would have been. But thank God for Neroy Clark the third. He offered us a lot of information, some historical documents. So we're grateful that we made that connection. So grateful.
Yes.
Anything else?
No, that's good. Okay. That's good. I mean, you covered it, but the main thing is that what one of her sayings that I mentioned earlier is still prevalent today. Is that knowledge. Knowledge could empower marginalized groups in ways that formal legal equality couldn't. The same thing today. These legalities and these laws that try to put us in certain positions. Knowledge is key. Knowledge is power.
That's it.
And we have to teach. We can't depend on the Sanchez or whoever. We can't depend on we can't depend on these white schools to educate our children. We got to educate them ourselves.
It starts at
home. We got to take the time to do it at home. Hopefully you can attend the HBCU, but if you're smart enough to attend another university, that's fine. That's great. Another college or another high school, that's fine. But what's our job?
That's it.
You can't expect somebody else to do it. We have to do it.
And if you do attend another school, wonderful, but be that spark, and get it started at your school. But I pray that you don't just learn about Black history when you get to college. Oh my Lord.
Like I did.
But we knew a lot.
We knew a lot, but I didn't.
We didn't know a whole lot, but we
didn't
knew.
Teach you at College
Park. Our parents and our forefathers. We were ingrained in, if nothing else, Dr. King and what he did. But we're learning. We're still learning. And look, knowledge, it never stops. If you say I know it all, then there's a problem. Every day we learn something new, and we thank God for this nugget of information that we've received. This has been a blessing. So we hope that this show has also blessed you, whether if you're watching us live or if you're running it back, rewinding it and watching it later on. We appreciate your support. We hope that you have been enlightened and blessed. The banner or the photo behind us says it all. And that's what she was. Very hopeful, patient, encouraging, honest, peaceful, forgiving, accepting, fearless, supportive, thankful. And what does the last one say? Loving and being open.
That's it.
That capitalizes all that she was and all that we need to be in this day and time.
That's it.
So with that, we're going to conclude this episode with a closing scripture. And it comes from 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 8 through 10. And this is the King James Version. And it reads, "We are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. We are perplexed, but not in despair.
That's it.
Persecuted, but not forsaken. Cast down, but not destroyed.
That's it.
Always bearing about in the body the dying of the Lord Jesus, that the life also of Jesus might be made manifest in our bodies." Is that our people or what? All of that describes our people. And yet, look, did Maya Angelou say that? And we rise. We stand firm on the solid rock. Our ankle holds and grips the solid rock, which is Jesus Christ our Lord. So continue to enjoy your weekend. Don't let Black History Month conclude on February 28th. It's every day, 24/7, 365. God bless you.
God bless you.
We love you. Thank you.